Great. Well, first, I just want to welcome everybody. It has been an extremely overwhelming, but also joyful, time to see everybody again. And I'm going to try not to tear up because it is so wonderful to see everybody and to be here. But we do have some work to do while we're here. And I want to start with some big picture goals for us. And that is first, that we want to move toward best practices. In order to do that, someone's got me, oh, it's me. Thank you, Justina. We're just dealing with a couple of AV things here, folks. Okay. So in order to move toward our best practices for ADRD disparities research, we have to remember our main goals and our intention, and the reasons that motivate us and remind us of why we chose to do what we do. And this requires, I think, stepping back and looking at some big picture goals. And I think we are all in agreement that we want to reduce and eliminate cognitive impairment and all of the disability that it causes. And that we want to increase the amount of time that people can live without cognitive impairment. And we want to do that for everyone. But we know there are inequalities. We know there are disparities in these outcomes. And so we also are committed to brain health equity. What equity means is to remove obstacles to health, to equalize opportunities, always remembering that those with worse health and fewer resources need the efforts expended, more efforts expended to improve their health environments and their health care. And so this is our intention. This is what we want to do. And when we ask what we can do better, we need to go back to basics. All the training, all the data, all the methods, and all the publications, promotion, grant funds mean nothing if we can't take steps toward achieving these goals. And what that means is to honor and serve all people, but also the people who participate in our research studies. So no matter what framework you use for your work, a health disparities framework that starts with racism, structural racism, systems of power, systems of oppression, and ends with our outcomes, which are cognitive function, whether that one is in the shape of a circle or a rectangle, or a square, whatever those frameworks are, we need to bring them to bear on the work that we're doing for this conference. And I wanted to show you this framework and put us in it. Where do we fit in? So it starts with fundamental causes. And what's interesting about this framework is that it acknowledges that a fundamental cause of inequality is unequal distribution of power. And it leads then to environmental influences, which influence individual experiences and exposures, and finally end in the effects of these inequalities. And I took the, I went ahead and added our outcomes to this slide: cognitive aging, cognitive impairment, and ADRD. So where do we fit in? There are people in this room who are well-versed and well-trained in sociology, and these and who are race scholars, and who understand how these systems of inequality are race-making and affect our environment, our political environment, our policies. There are people in this room who are expert at understanding how some of these environmental influences affect our health, including educational inequalities, socioeconomic inequalities, neighborhood factors. And then there are people in this room who are expert in some of the mediators like cardiovascular disease or Alzheimer's disease biomarkers, some of the inflammatory processes that might influence health. And then finally, there are experts in this room, like myself, who are neuropsychologists. And we know all about the cognitive outcomes. And so I want you to just reflect that there are people in this room who have different areas of expertise, and we need to work together to solve this problem. And we're beautifully represented here. Oh, I forgot about the people up top, sorry. The people who are experts in the arrows. So these are in my mind, the statisticians and the biostatisticians who know how to model the whole thing. Yeah, I couldn't find room for them. Sorry, I'm sorry. So that just goes to show my bias, but they're up there. I did put them up there. There. And they're the ones who make all the connections. I mean, okay, all right. So I was made aware of this poem by Marjorie Givens, who presented at a structural racism conference a couple weeks ago. And the title of the poem, it's by Ryan Pettaway, and it's something, something, something by race, 2021. And one of the things that Dr. Pettaway says in this poem is that structural racism is, quote, not just a thing out there to study in relation to health inequalities, but also a thing in here that shapes how we do what we do and who gets to do it. And I think this conference is an opportunity for us to reflect on that and to do something about it. What would it mean to identify white supremacy as the biggest barrier and the biggest obstacle in cognitive aging and Alzheimer's disease research? Lack of diversity in clinical trials, biomarker and genetic research, and observational studies, all of that, all the problems with representation in those studies wouldn't be an accident or due to lack of education of minoritized populations about Alzheimer's disease or cognitive impairment. It would be the direct consequence of gatekeeping, white centering in every aspect of our science. So we need to understand, just as we need to embrace those biostatisticians, what forces, power, and money are driving the questions that we ask. What are those forces that drive the populations we recruit and the evidence we get, and importantly, how we interpret that evidence? So I'm incredibly grateful that all of you are here in person or virtually. I recognize that all of you, we've been talking about it, just the last day and a half, you had to make hard choices to be here, and you had to make sacrifices to be here with us. I cannot wait to learn from you, but I want to tell you what I really like about Friday Harbor, which is now ΨMCA. There's an openness to learning here that is unparalleled at any conference. There is collaboration here that is embracing and is welcoming. I have always felt welcomed here, and I want all of you to feel welcomed as well. But we're taking on a topic that can be tricky and can be difficult. And I want the spirit that we always have here at ΨMCA to apply to the science and the mission and the purpose that we all have today, right now. I hope that this will help us create a culture change in cognitive aging and Alzheimer's disease research. Part of that means changing the people and the places where we do Alzheimer's disease research, and importantly, to reject racial essentialism and through collaboration, give ourselves tools and a language to honor the complex systems that pattern risk and resilience for cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease. So with that, I'm going to end and turn it over to Dr. Robinson, who is our first speaker of the day.